Hello, this is Donna from Donna T Crafting, and this is the Color Me Autumn Video Hop with the Altenew Certified Educators. Be sure to hop along, like, subscribe, and comment at each stop for your chance to win an Altenew gift card. We're going to jump right in, and I am going to lay down 2 shades of yellow on my work surface. In this instance, I am using Altenew's Honey Drizzle and Maple Yellow. And I'm dabbing this on my work surface, which happens to be a glass mat in this instance. You could use a craft mat or anything like that. I'm going to spray some water onto that ink so that it can move around. And then I'm going to start dipping my A2 card panel into this. This card panel is a 100-pound hammer mill cover stock. And I'm just dipping it into this to pick up that color. As we know, leaves in nature are not one flat color, so I'm trying to get some variation of this yellow to cut my leaves out of this card panel. And I'm going to do several colors here so that we can have several colors of leaves. So I'm going to add this ink down again, the same 2 colors of yellow on my work surface. I didn't have to clean this up since I was using the same yellows. I'm going to spray that with water, and then I decided I'm going to also add in some orange. In this case, I am adding in Autumn Blaze, and I'm going to do some water on that. Now I'm adding a little more water with this. The more water you add, it's going to dilute the color some. So if you want a lighter color, you can easily just add more water. Darker color, try to add less water with it. So I'm adding all my yellow on my panel, getting it really, really yellow, and then I'm going to come back and dab in spots with this orange, so that I have some good variation of yellow and orange on this panel. And I'm just setting these aside to dry naturally. I'll probably have to heat set them in a little bit. Now let's do an orange panel. In this case, I'm going to use Autumn Blaze on the left and Sunkissed on the right. Again, just dabbing in. I decided I would start with my lighter color and try to cover most of the panel with that lighter color, and then just take that darker color and kind of dip into it so that you've got those variations of color on that darker pan on top. I think it turns out really cool. One thing to keep in mind with these panels, they look wonderful. Something that will happen is as they dry, they will lighten up some. So just keep that in mind as you're making your panels. So here I added in some yellow, the maple yellow, and I used my leftover Autumn Blaze, which it was watered. I had to add some more water in it, so it's watered down, so it's a little bit lighter. So I added yellow on the bottom layer and then came back and added some of that orange on top, trying to get another just variation of the colors so that when I cut my leaves, I'll just have a lot of variety. Now I decided I wanted to do some reds, so here I came back with crimson, which I'm putting down now, and then the color velvet, which is darker in the red tones. Again, just adding water, and then we're going to dip our paper into it. I used the method of laying down the paper into the lighter color to get as much of the base layer here, and then come back and dip it into the darker to get that variation over the top of that. I decided I didn't have quite enough contrast, or I added too much dark, one of the two. And so I came in with some milk chocolate, which is a brown, and added some water to that. And then I dipped that on top of this to add a little bit of brown over this red, which I think turns out pretty cool when you add brown over this. I think I've seen quite a bit of brown and red together in nature, so I thought that would add a little variety for our leaves as well. So we're going to set those aside and clean up a work surface, and now I'm going to come back with the Garden Friend stamp set. This is a cute little, it says it's a chipmunk. I keep calling it a squirrel, so if I call it a squirrel, even though it says it's a chipmunk, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to use my Altenew stamp wheel, and I picked the first layer, which is the solid layer of the chipmunk, and I'm using vanilla cream to lay that color down here. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get the second layer. With the second layer, I'm going to use, I'm going to stay in the same family of the Altenew family of this, and it's hazelnut is the next layer. So I'm just adding the layers from the stamp set, and I'm just going up one step in that color family with each layer. So this one is called Hazelnut, and for me, I did 2 stampings of each layer so that I got a good stamp image and good coloring down on there. And I think this little guy is the cutest thing. The next layer that we're going to add on here is called almond butter, and we'll add that layer on top of this, and it just keeps adding some dimension to this little, well, I called it a squirrel again, this little chipmunk with his little stripes and different parts of his hair and his eyes. He's just adorable. So this is almond butter that we're laying down here. And after we clean up that stamp, we will go in with the 4th layer. On the 4th layer, we are going to use milk chocolate as my darkest brown for this little guy. Now you want to make sure you check the package. On the back of the package, there's a layering guide that helps with aligning each of the stamps of this guy, and that's helpful in trying to make sure that you line up the ears and the nose and the different parts of the little chipmunk. So we add down this milk chocolate to add in that darkest layer. There's not a whole lot on this layer, but there is, adds some cute little pieces and parts to him, that's for sure. I did stamp another one offline, just so I have 2. And the last layer for this is this teeny tiny little dot, which is supposed to be part of his mouth. I don't usually do that teeny tiny dot, and what I do instead is I come back with my Altenew Artistry marker, alcohol marker, and I used R304, which is Coralberry, and I just drew that little piece in. It looks wonderful that way, and it just saves my frustration of trying to get that dot in the right exact space. And then I also come back with a white gel pen, and I put a little tiny dot in his eye. Offline, I fussy cut the little guy out, and here we have all of our panels that we made before. And we're going to take the Garden Friend die set, and I have dried these panels, and we're going to die cut them. I also used some craft cardstock to die cut the little acorn bodies. And then I used a darker cardstock, a darker brown cardstock from my scraps to cut the caps for the acorns. After I did that, I realized the craft was a little light for the bodies for what I wanted. So I'm taking a blending brush and I'm adding some brown ink to that. I'm using basically a milk chocolate. I think I used the ink off the brush and then came back and added some milk chocolate to the brush to add in those inks. Add in the ink to the bodies of the acorn. And I just did this because I felt like it was a little too light for what I was wanting with these. You will notice in the die set, it cuts a single acorn. It's a little bit bigger. And then it cuts a grouping of acorns. There's 4 acorns in that grouping. And then the caps are cut the same way. There is a single cap for your single acorns. And then the little ones, the caps are all hooked together. So it's a lot easier to align those and attach those easily. You can see I cut a bunch of leaves, a whole set of leaves out of each color of the panels. And then I also cut out a thanks, both the shadow and the letters out of some orange and the red that I had left over. And I will stack those together. And that will be in the middle of our card as our sentiment. Here I'm adding the caps to the acorns. As I said, they line up pretty easily since they cut out, how they the bodies and the caps together. So here's all my pieces and parts. I am going to use an A2 card panel. This again is in craft. And I'm going to take some of the almond butter and I'm going to just blend around the edges. I thought it was a little flat to start out with just a flat card, so I wanted to blend a little bit around the edges. We are going to cover up quite a bit of this with our leaves, but I think it'll add a little bit to the background to have this almond butter blended around the edges. Keep in mind with the leaves, they are cut out in kind of bunches or groups of leaves, like a branch or a grouping of leaves. I am going to cut quite a bit of them apart because I want some leaves to be falling. I want them in different places. I want to mix my colors. So know that you can do leaf surgery on these still too. I'll start with laying out some of the bigger leaves in the corners because I'm going to have 3 corners where I have the big leaves and layer on top of that. And then use a lot of the little pieces and parts around the frame and coming down around the things. So we'll start with one color in the corner here. We'll start with a yellow over here in this corner, and then I'll layer some orange on top of it. And then I can move to putting the red, the big red leaf in the corner, and then a big orange in another corner. As I have like full leaves hanging off, those would be things that I would cut off so that I could use the leaf in another manner on the card somehow. So, that one leaf in that orange one would be a good one to cut off and save for another part of the card. And as I figure out where I want them, I'll start gluing them down. I do want to I have 3 of the bunches of small acorns, and I'm going to put those in each corner. And then I just took pieces and parts of leaves and started making a frame around it. I put my thanks in the middle, and then I also took some of the smaller leaves for them to be kind of falling down in different directions around the thanks. I thought that would make it pretty cute to have falling leaves around the thanks there. And then on the bottom of this card, I'm going to have a bed of leaves along the bottom, and then I'll take those 3 large acorns and put those on the bottom, kind of in the center, a little bit hanging off. I can even cut some of that off when I trim it down, but that will leave a little bit of leaf area down, or acorn area down there. Once I have everything in place how I want it, I'm going to be putting my little chipmunk over here, but first I came up with the idea that I wanted to add some of the Enchanted Gold Shimmer Relief Paste onto some of my leaves. So I take a little bit of that shimmer paste and on my finger, and I just rub it lightly, just a light coat on some various leaves on my card. Now, it would have been a smart idea on my part to do this before I glued these down on the card, but I didn't think of it then. The idea came to me a little bit later. If I was doing it before I put it on the card, I could have used something like a sponge dauber or something like that. But since I'm doing it while on the card, it's a little easier to control it with my finger. And I'm just adding a little light coat on some various leaves around the cards to give it a little bit of shimmer and sparkle without adding a whole bunch of weight or overdone shimmer and sparkle on this. I just wanted a little bit of glint of gold on a few of the leaves. So easiest just to take it with my finger and rub those on. And then I'll pop the little chipmunk on some foam tape and put him here in the corner. And I think he's just adorable there. Now, all of my leaves have dried, the glue has dried, so I'm going to trim around my card. You wouldn't have to, you could get a larger envelope and send it like this, but I wanted to trim it down to the A2. I turn it over and trim from the back so I can see the edge of the card and trim close to that edge without cutting into the edge. So it's easier if you do that from the back side. And there you have my Color Me Autumn card. I hope you have enjoyed this. Please be sure to watch the other certified educators along the video hop and make sure you like, subscribe, and comment for your chance to win an Altenew gift card. Remember, I'm Donna T. from Donna T. Crafting, and I wish you a happy day.